Hi everyone, this is Skillshop 99 Gaming. This is The Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 16 review. We're going to address some rumors. We're going to address Fear the Walking Dead, World Beyond, the movie, spinoffs, a little bit of everything. Apparently, since The Walking Dead stopped filming and shows have been delayed, there is every rumor, every theory, everything under the sun just exploding all at one time. We're going to address a few of those things. I promise I won't make it a rant, but it is good to be back with everybody. How about a quick shout out to our entire Patreon army? You see them up on the screen, the Play Dead Live sponsors, our members. What an incredible group. We're going strong. We got content for everybody, and I want to thank all of you guys for being here tonight and joining as we get into a little bit of Walking Dead chat. I think some people have had a little bit of Walking Dead withdrawals, but you guys are free to hang out with us, do a little bit of PvP, do a little bit of by review. We're going to discuss, we're not going to recap, we're actually going to review what's out there, if that's your question. So let me start with some of the content that's out there. Now, we got a typical case of, I addressed this about, I don't know, maybe 5 months ago. So there were multiple content articles that came out right around the same time, and they were using different sources to cite another source. For example, it would almost be like if one of our Deadly Dimes in chat right now, if Deadly Dime said, hey guys, I heard there was a Walking Dead spinoff, and then I did a stream and said, Deadly Dimes has stated that there's a spinoff, then I'm quoting her even though she doesn't fully have the information. Sorry, I think I was phasing in and out. We should be good to go. There are a couple of sources doing that right now. One that you guys know of is Forbes. Forbes has done this on multiple occasions, and there's a battle kind of going back and forth where we've got this covered. We'll quote an anonymous source. Shortly after they quote an anonymous source, then 3 or 4 other publications will say, well, there's a rumor of a spinoff. So here's my question for the group. How many Walking Dead spinoffs have you guys seen? Over the years, we've been doing this for 6 years. And in 6 years, we've heard there's going to be an Abraham, there's going to be a Rosita, there's going to be another series. How many spinoffs are out there? So we got to use a little bit of the common sense philosophy. 1 spinoff. 1. Fear the Walking Dead. However, has anyone heard about the Daryl Dixon spinoff Walking Dead movie? There's an article on it right now that The Walking Dead is discussing a Daryl Dixon spinoff movie. Oh, but there's another article out there that there's a Michonne spinoff movie. Wait, so The Walking Dead has done 1 spinoff in 10 years, but now we've heard that there's a Daryl Dixon spinoff coming. We've also heard there was a Michonne spinoff, and lo and behold, guess who we've got this covered is saying is going to rejoin with Rick? Negan. So currently there are 3 rumors of Walking Dead spinoffs being filmed, but yet the production on the second one is not even out there. So come on, guys. It's easy to type something and get it out there and then forget that you ever typed it 6 months from now. And, you know, I typically like to keep it clean, and I don't want to call bullshit, but it is. It is. And this is what happens when people are left to their own reporting devices. We've got this covered, continues to quote anonymous sources. They are the same site that, and I will tell you, We Got This Covered, a couple of years ago, they hit on something. I don't know what it was, but they hit on something, and then they gained a decent amount of respect. But the last 4 or 5 months, they're as bad as George. So I would love to have something to talk about to feed to you guys, but today we are going to address some of the other rumors that are out there that are being discussed, and just to kind of shine a little bit of light of the state of the Walking Dead universe. All right, so fans apparently are panicking because Jerry shaved his beard. Now, is that reason to panic? Because I remember fans were panicking last year when they showed pictures of Negan with short hair. So as soon as Negan cut his hair last year, there were people saying, he cut his hair, he's going to die. So one, from what I've heard, is that episode 16 is completed. In a recent interview, Angela Kang had stated that they were working on the audio. So, if they've already filmed the episode and they're just in the editing phase, Jerry could shave his beard. If he doesn't think that they're going back to filming until July or August, I mean, typically this would be the time of the year where they're starting for the next season. And he can grow a beard back in a few months. I mean, look. All right. In addition to that, you guys probably saw the Maggie teaser. Okay. Now, I'm not going to say that we're completely on this, but before spoilers were reporting how many people were in our streams 6 months ago when we openly discussed videos about Maggie coming back in the season finale and having an epic intro to bring her back in a big, big way. Now, you might say, okay, well, look, that's an easy prediction. But it's not an easy prediction when more than half the audience did not agree with it. And out of that half the audience, I remember the stream, it was pretty venomous. So what I want to do is I want to kind of take the pulse again of some of our Walking Dead fans. And before we do that, I want to pause and I want to say, it's good to have all you guys here. So how many people, even if we do it once a week, how many people miss kind of getting our group together and talking about The Walking Dead? Because it's good to see all of you guys. All right. So now we want to talk a little bit about the Maggie Negan parallel. And I think in that stream, the point that I was trying to make, and I was very passionate about trying to make the point, is that because of the circumstances around Maggie leaving, that they almost had to do it kind of like Negan. Negan, they went overboard. They killed too viciously. Took him a while to sort of rebuild his character. I think Negan's back in a good spot right now. Maggie, through not entirely the fault of the writers, it was a fire drill for her to leave. But for her to come back, and have to win the fans back over, it's got to be done in a big way. Now, is there anybody that was on the fence with Maggie, and then now you see this version of Maggie, and you got to read that letter? The letter said, hey, Maggie, we need you back. Jesus is dead. Tara is dead. Enid is dead. So there are other people that are dead. But this letter specifically highlighted the three people that Maggie had the biggest connection with at Hilltop. So that certainly was meant to strike a nerve. And I don't think it was meant so Maggie just kind of takes it all in stride. Now, is there anybody at this point that thinks Maggie is going to have a ho-hum reintroduction because she got the letter? I mean, at this point, do you feel like Maggie's going to show up? She's going to walk in pretty slow. Hey, Daryl, what y'all did with them whispers, that was pretty good, but I'm here. If y'all need a little help, I'll be right over here. Just give me a holler, give me a shout. If y'all need me to step in, I'm pretty good with a handgun. No, that's not going to be the way she comes in. They are writing a letter for Maggie to come in and to blow some stuff up. It ain't going to be, I'm here as a support role if you need me. It is, let's get Maggie back and put a big, bright spotlight right on Lauren. Now, ironically, there's this thing you do, right? Let me put it this way. A cup can only be 100% full. So if The Walking Dead is a cup, I'm going to use my cup analogy, and it's full, and you got a Maggie cup, a Carol cup, and a Daryl cup, and you got so much liquid. When you minimize some of the other characters, it's easier to make characters that the audience is on the fence with come across as more powerful and more dominant. They did this with multiple people when they needed to build Negan back up, right? And it wasn't just Rick leaving, but Rick leaving by default made us rely on Negan. Judith giving her support to Negan made us like Negan a little bit more. So right now, how many people have some reservations about where Carol's at? Like Carol's mindset. We got a couple super chats in the house. Let me get to those and I'll get back to my point. Animal says, when Maggie comes back, she will become the de facto leader or leave it to Daryl to lead the group. Perfect super chat, and I'll touch on that. And then Fluff also says she's going to have a bazooka that says the widow on it. I think both of you are absolutely correct. Literally and figuratively. So, Carol has become a little bit unraveled. Okay? It's hard to love Carol right now. But Carol has a history with us. So I'm not giving up on Carol yet. But Michonne leaving and Carol and Rosita being sort of toned down a little bit opens up the door for Maggie to really come in guns a-blazing. So this is what I'm talking about with the 100%. You take away a little bit from one character and you write more script, more story, more badassery for another character. So the Maggie storyline, I think the letter in itself transitioned several people. So I'm going to ask this question, but it is going to require complete honesty because sometimes we forget what we say, right? How many people were a little bit moved by Maggie reading the letter? Something as simple as seeing Maggie once and for all and seeing that the group needed her, and it was kind of like a desperation call to get her to come help. How many people that affected you a little bit? You know, maybe you weren't sure how you felt about Maggie, but then that small little clip was enough to sort of say, okay. Because many of you know I was probably the first to do one of the rants when Lauren left the show. And shortly after that, I backtracked on it. Changed my position and said, look, that's the way I felt at that time. I've changed my mind. Didn't go back and claim to be right or wrong or whatever the case may be. I changed my opinion. And my opinion has been gradually swaying more and more and more toward a Maggie comeback. Najee Watt says, I think Maggie's exit was meant to explain how she becomes a bigger part of the universe later. She has a more prominent role in future comic stories. And I can certainly drink that Kool-Aid, Najee. That to me, I don't know that that was the intent, but I do think that that is an unintended consequence that will be built upon. When she first left, I honestly think that there were some people so pissed off at her that they were going to make her the first whisperer head that is out there until contract negotiations got a little bit better. And if they didn't leave the door open for a Maggie return, I would not have been surprised to see the group find her as Alpha's first kill. But contract talks advanced relatively quickly, and they kept it professional. And I'm glad they did leave the door open. But I think you're right. I think that now you have the opportunity to do two things, Najee. I think what you can do is you can bring her back in a role where maybe she kills Beta, maybe she finds a way to kill all the walkers and Rosita doesn't have to walk them off the ledge. Maybe she comes back after Rosita dies. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that can happen with her intro. But then to your point, where has she been? Who does she know? And can The Walking Dead successfully transition to a new story with a much wider universe? Sounds easy, but Fear the Walking Dead has not been able to do it successfully. We don't know about the world beyond yet because we haven't really seen, we've seen the teasers and the trailers and the highlights from it. But whether or not that's going to be successful, I mean, it's only 2 years, so we don't know. Could still be a flop after 1 year. I mean, we're going to watch it for 2 years regardless. But when you expand the universe, there are challenges. And I think the biggest problem that the show is going to have, and I think back in January, we kind of brought this up. You've kind of got 3 groups of fans. You've got Walking Dead fans. Doesn't matter what the show does, they're Walking Dead fans. And you've got zombie horror fans. And then you potentially have the transition into sci-fi. Now, the first group of fans doesn't really care, right? We're going to watch it regardless. The horror fans, many of those left after the Negan introduction and the lineup. And the sci-fi fans might want to see a little bit of new groups, new experiences, new travel, new weapons, new people, new leaders, new villains. But it doesn't mean that everybody's going to want that. So I think what Maggie has experienced is going to be, it's going to be exciting, but it also may be a challenge. And Bug, I think that's a big question. Now, I could go, we have this covered, and I could go George Drake and say, well, I heard from an anonymous source, one of my cats, that Negan is going to leave when Maggie comes back, and he's going to go start his own spinoff show with a few of the Whisperers. And then, I don't know, maybe Eric Kane over at Forbes will say, hey, 999 Gaming recently reported that Negan is going to have his own show. And then people read it and it becomes like it's a real thing. But it's not an anonymous source. It's something we can discuss. I think it's a possibility. Now, does Negan have the ability to carry a show? Maybe. Moonshot. Which has more impact on the group? Maggie's return, Eugene's getting back with his group and doing whatever. For me, as much as I like Eugene, I still think he's viewed as a joke. And there's not a whole lot of interest in what Eugene does. And from a popularity standpoint, I would say that Maggie is going to be able to win over the masses much easier, Moonshot, than Eugene is going to. Yeah, Julie, I don't disagree with that. But liking Eugene and Eugene being able to, look, Eugene is probably, you guys aren't going to like this, Eugene has no more ability to carry the show or drive the story any more than Chandler Riggs did. As much as I like Chandler Riggs and as much as I like Carl, the Carl character would have had to completely evolve and change in order for them to hand the keys to the show over to Carl. But Maggie is different. for all of the points we mentioned. 1, Maggie, tough farm girl. She went through the death of Beth. She watched her husband get beat down. She showed a little bit of mercy on Negan. But she decided, I need to take baby Herschel and I need to see what else is out there with Georgie. So she learned a little bit more. So she's got all of this background that and you guys may not agree with this. I see Maggie every bit the leader, if her character is written the right way, as Michonne was. And we gravitated toward Michonne relatively easily, right? Rick is gone. The council's there. Michonne puts her foot down. She is in charge. Well, Michonne's not there anymore. So I don't think it'll be a very difficult situation for the viewers to see Maggie in the same light that they saw Michonne. And I'm still having trouble with seeing Daryl in a leadership role. It's a challenge because Daryl still has the potential to do what he wants to do, which isn't always in the best interest of the group. So, Trigger, hit that like button, show kills in the army some. Absolutely. Let's hit it, everybody. Look, it's been a little while since we've been together. Hit that like button. Many of you love Daryl. But Daryl ain't Rick. Doesn't have to be Rick. He's making some headway. But let's think about the character Daryl for a minute here. How many of you think that Daryl would welcome Maggie back with open arms? Hey, it's good to have you back. I think there's no question about it. I think Daryl would welcome Maggie back like a sister, like she is the female version of Rick Grimes. Now, how many people also think that Daryl has been forced into this uncomfortable leadership role and would love for Maggie to make a few decisions so he could just go out for a ride and get away from the pressure? How many people think that Daryl would look forward to Maggie coming in and calling a few shots to give him a break? So the only thing preventing that from happening is those of us fans that might still be holding a little bit of a grudge. Daryl's claim to fame, Daryl's character, Daryl's the thing that draws fans to Daryl was never that he was anything like Rick. It was that Daryl always pulls for the underdog. And I don't think having him in charge of a bunch of people gives you that satisfaction of what you really liked about Daryl and what attached you to Daryl all these years. In fact, I would argue that giving him too much responsibility makes his character worse. I like that bad, rebellious Daryl. it's only going to go so far with Daryl. I think if they stay true to his character, it's going to be very well written. It's going to be because look, he has the opportunity to be a wild card. So, Will, I think you're right. I mean, she doesn't know what's going on, but Maggie's not naive. We know that. Whether we'll see it, whether it'll just kind of materialize, that's a different story. So let me ask the group this question. Think back through the show, and what is your favorite Maggie moment? When you think back through The Walking Dead, see, I figured most people were going to say that. So, when a lot of people think about Maggie, you think about the love affair with Glenn, right? That's like her natural character. But when you think about Rick, you think about Rick biting somebody's ear off, or you think about him, you talking to me? You think about Rick and then Michonne whacking him over the head. Like, you think about Rick of being a leader. Now, didn't always make the best decisions. In fact, Rick made a lot of bad decisions. but he made bold, decisive decisions, right? There was no doubt that Rick would this is the way we're going to do it. He will march you off a cliff. Doesn't make any difference. And people will follow him. But when you get to Maggie, you think about, a little country girl and falling in love with Glenn and then all of those things. But then she hung Gregory, and then she shot one of the saviors and put him in a coffin and sent it back to Negan. And then she basically had Daryl and Jesus, and she was threatening what they were going to do to Rick. And then she actually had a chance to kill Negan, and she walked away from it. So there's a transition, but it was not well received. So why do you think that Maggie's toughness was not received by the audience? I want to kind of get your theories out there. Why did it not make a bigger impact? Like, Daryl does the same things Maggie does, and it's going to be, oh man, Daryl's badass. But when Maggie did some of those things, the audience just kind of, she's a loose cannon. I agree with some of that. Najee says we're left with whatever we saw. Will said she didn't stick around long enough to keep it going, so some inconsistency. Nixie says Maggie wasn't strong. She was hateful and revengeful. She might be strong now. Busy Bee, once she hung Gregory, made everything else less important. Wasn't toughness, it was dark. Ben, crazy to think Eugene's lie started them on the path toward D.C. leading to Alexandria. Savior's whispers on and on. That is true. And we'll touch on that in 1 second. But let me also say, is it also possible that the audience didn't appreciate Maggie's leadership because you also had Rick, Michonne, Negan, Daryl, Carol? So Maggie was in a leadership role, and one could argue she wasn't even one of the top 10 most important people on the TV show. So it's a little hard to take that character serious when they're not even one of the most important characters on the show. It was very forced. Most of the audience was not tuning in to see what Maggie was doing at Hilltop. They were tuning in to see what Rick was going to do, what Daryl was going to do, what Negan was going to do, what Carol was going to do, who Michonne was going to kill. So it's a tough situation to be in. But I do think that all of those traits are going to build a stronger long-term character. She does have the ability to shoot someone, put them in a casket, and send that casket. It might be dark, but she might need to rely on that at some point. Well, see, that's not bad either, but there's also opportunity. And this is what I wanted to touch on about 30 minutes ago and get it to this point right here. Rick and Michonne leaving has certainly opened up the door for somebody that we know, somebody that we have been through it with. And I think it's easier for the audience to pass the baton to Maggie and to follow Maggie rather than introduce somebody, or it's a character that we're not really sure about at this point. Yes, so Gina Crockett said, did everyone notice Maggie was still wearing the blue bandana in the clip? Of all the things that Maggie's been through, I don't think she forgot anything. But I'm going to go back to Tom Bug Ferreira's comment earlier. I am so interested to see if Maggie can coexist with Negan. That to me is the $1 million question. Because I think it's going to tell a lot about her future actions of whether or not they can be in the same town. Ben says, I also think Maggie will deal with some of the guilt of having been gone when all this has happened to the group. Well, a la Rick Grimes, Ben. I mean, isn't that the same type of setup that they put Rick in for years? Rick makes a decision, and it's got some consequences to it. And then when the smoke clears, especially in the comic, probably, you know what, in the comic more so than in the TV show, Rick Grimes doubts himself like issue after issue. I know at least, I got to about 120, and there were at least 5 times in the first 120 episodes where Rick would have that little soliloquy or have that moment with someone about, am I doing the right thing? Are people, do they respect me? Are they going to follow me? So it's the burden of leadership, and I don't know that Daryl wants it, and I don't know that Daryl can handle it, and I don't know that he needs to handle it. It doesn't lessen who Daryl is. You know, it depends. And Will, I think that's where the rumors come in. So enter Maggie, exit Negan, will riots and burns out. You know, it depends on what they do with Negan's character. I mean, they've spent so much time rebuilding it. They're certainly not going to kill him. And I don't think that's a anonymous source that we got this covered is quoting. I think it's a common sense prediction. I mean, we certainly made that prediction without anonymous sources. I mean, if you guys want us to just say it's an anonymous source, fine. We'll quote it as an anonymous source if people want to believe that BS. It's a calculated gamble prediction. And I'll tell you why. There's 2 big events. You don't spend 2 seasons rebuilding Negan to kill him. Just doesn't happen. It ain't going to happen. But at the same time, you don't bring Maggie back for an episode to get rid of her. But then you also have the problem of the 2 of them coexisting. The only way they can coexist is for Maggie to have forgiven Negan for what he did to Glenn. That's not impossible. It's a little bit of a stretch, I think. But it's not impossible. Actually, I think that is option number 2. I think that is the most likely situation to play out. But then to go back to people quoting these anonymous sources, what would be option number 1? I think Negan leaving the show would be option number 1 and staying in the Walking Dead universe. Being a part of the movie or being a part of a true spinoff show. But I could see option A or option B happening there. Jumpstone. It's hard to imagine a place where Maggie and Negan exist together, but Kane could find it. Yeah, I mean, if it's tough because I can't piece it together with Maggie. I know you could make the argument, well, Rosita is not trying to kill Negan, and Negan killed Glenn. And indirectly, now, we can't really blame Negan for Sasha's death because Sasha was trying to go Rambo mode and break in to the Savior's area. So Negan didn't kill Sasha, so Rosita can't really hold that against him. But you could look at Michonne, and Michonne would say, all right, well, why didn't Michonne hold the grudge because Negan killed Glenn and Abraham, and they were both close to Michonne? Well, because Rick didn't want that to happen. So the only person that has this deep-rooted edge, but now, let me ask this question. See, here's the problem, and this is the way I think this is going to go down. Ben says, think about what scenarios could she have gone through while that may change her perspective of Negan. See, Ben, I don't think it has to do, I think we're all looking at it in the wrong perspective. So let me shift, we'll shift the paradigm here and get you thinking about it from another way. We're all worried about, well, how's Maggie going to react to Negan and what's that going to be like? It might not have anything to do with Maggie. Because remember Brandon. In order for me to get you to fully understand this, Brandon followed Negan because of what? Because of the stories and how the legend of Negan was always there. Right? So, I want to see who gets this right. Because I don't think anybody's mentioned this. What is a bigger problem than Maggie having to look at Negan every day? Because there's someone else that I would not want around Negan. And I think that's what gets lost in the fray here. It's probably not going to be about Maggie. It's probably going to be about baby Herschel. Do you really want your kid to look at this man who murdered your dad? Now, the question I have for you is Negan a redeemed person? Yes or no? That's only part one to it, Amanda. So it's not about Herschel looking at Negan. Okay, so if Negan is a redeemed person, would it not stand to reason that he would voluntarily leave to keep from putting Maggie and her son in that situation? That's the scenario that I see play out. I don't think it's about Maggie asking Negan to leave. I think it's about Negan understanding that he is the odd man out, of Negan understanding that that child should not grow up looking at him the same way that Brandon looked at him. That legend is never going to go away. Herschel should not be around that. So, in that scenario, I could see Negan wanting to go off in a different direction and then a spinoff or then something else happening. So, we get so caught up on the fact that it's Maggie that's going to have hard feelings. Well, she didn't kill him the first time. She's probably not going to kill him the second time, but she did leave. So if she left, then why is she going to bring her son back? And then if Negan truly is redeemed, he's got to have enough understanding. So hold on one second. All right, so I just wanted to kind of get that conversation out there because it is something that we've touched on quite a bit. And I do think that Negan had to learn something from that Brandon situation. I don't think it was just, a random fill-in of some guy that was starstruck by Negan. I think there was some intent to it. I think there was some purpose to that story. And I do think it sets up the Maggie Herschel dynamic quite well. So I'm not going to disagree with those of you that says Negan's a different person. I understand that. But if there is someone, look, if Lenny James can go over to Fear and give Fear a little bit of a boost, and if Dwight can give Fear a little bit of a boost, if there is one spinoff that I would give some credibility, it would be that Negan could show up somewhere else. And I don't think that you need to do it just to have another series out there. I think you could tell a pretty good story. Yeah, busy. At this point, I'm kind of over that. Like, who was right, who was wrong, what they should have done. Whether you shoot somebody or whether you beat somebody's head in with a bat and dance around. I mean, there's a lot of ways to kill people. There's also psychotic, sadistic ways of killing people. And you kind of pick your poison with that. But to me, it's not a question of are you just or are you validated to whether or not you seek revenge, but the method of the showmanship and the pageant. I think, how would people feel about Rick? Let's put in perspective. All right, you know what? I'm gonna squash this because we're here, and I've heard that argument multiple times. I'm gonna bring some closure to it. I don't think YouTubers, I don't think streamers have done a good enough job in shining the light on this for what it is. So if you really want oranges to oranges, and we have the debate of whether or not what Negan did was validation for what stabbing somebody, what Glenn did while they were sleeping. So if we want to make it apples to apples, Rick and group surrounds the outpost. And then they drive the RV up. And then not even stabbing them in their sleep, Rick brings them all out, puts them all down on their knees. Which one of you is Negan? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. All right. And he has everybody from Alexandria stand around. And then he pulls one of them out and starts stabbing him in the neck over and over and over again in front of everybody. Now, I'm sure we'd probably look at Rick a little bit differently. No. But then one of the saviors from the outpost, Rick's not done yet. Then he goes to one of the other ones and puts his knife right in their face like Negan did with Rosita. And then he finds out like maybe one of them's pregnant and one of them's that. And then he finds one of the two and he just starts, when somebody moves the wrong way, Rick decides to pull one of them out. And then he starts stabbing them and moonwalking in the back and doing some crazy dance. So if we want to compare the outpost to the lineup, then let's see what Rick could have done. Because there's no doubt and why did Rick and group go to the outpost? Now, like Gregory or don't like Gregory, they tried to assassinate Gregory at the hilltop. And in addition to that, they were slaves. So Negan was enslaving every single community. And those people at the outpost were responsible for that persecution and making sure that everybody paid half of their stuff to an overlord. So it's not even the same comparison. Rick and group were killing people so they didn't have to live under someone else's rule. So they could make a point that they could grow their own food and eat their own food. So I'm blown away that we continue to make arguments of how Rick's group hurt the Saviors when the Saviors were the ones taking from everybody. What were they going to do other than pay half? It's not like they could go and negotiate and say, hey, we're here at this outpost and we're going to, we might have to kill a few of you if you don't stop and let us grow our own vegetables. No, they were put in that situation. All right, hopefully we got everybody back. Sorry for that brief interruption, but we should have everybody here. No, I mean, we've discussed it, and I've seen kind of all arguments. And look, there's nothing wrong with being a Negan fan. I'm not trying to prevent anybody from being a fan, or I've heard that argument like, well, if you would have been from the perspective of the Saviors, you would have seen that. I don't agree with that argument either, because I never saw Rick going from outpost to outpost and saying, hey, I'm here to pick up half your stuff. You go back to the sanctuary and you grow me some strawberries and meet me here, and I'm taking these back. And we'll kill a few walkers for you, whether you want us to do it or not. And by the way, if you don't have half my stuff, I'm going to have to kill one of you. So those that still think that what Rick did was wrong and what Negan did was right, did you guys forget the episodes where Negan pulled the truck up to Alexandria and Simon was there and they didn't go out and scavenge enough for him? Did you guys forget that? I don't understand why you wouldn't think that that's the biggest travesty from the Saviors. The fact that the Saviors were nothing but overlords and masters. And what they could have done, I guess Rick could have packed up and they could have moved to Ohio, or they could have moved back to Georgia. But they had a complete community, and this guy came in and just out of no reason at all said, I'm just going to start taking 50% of all your stuff. I just find it ironic that we only pick that small segment out of the story. And we certainly block out all the stuff that led up to that. And I could never see Rick killing a pregnant woman's husband in front of her and then dancing and howling about it. I've seen, Rick's done some stuff, but there was no, there was not even the slightest little bit of remorse after he did it. It wasn't like, Simon, I feel pretty bad about that. I might have went a little bit over the top. What do you think as far as over the top? You think that was an 8? You think that was a 9? Oh, and in case you forgot, what also happened that night, How about the fact, did you guys forget that he got a Sharpie from Simon and he was going to cut off Carl's arm unless Rick begged? Did you guys forget that part? Because I don't remember Rick doing that either. So, I mean, those are three things that really kind of set in my mind. Oh. Or how about the second time he was going to kill Carl in front of Rick and Shiva saved the day? Like, we could do a whole remix album of what was much, much worse than the way the Alexandrians conducted themselves. But, hey, Daryl blowing up those saviors with a rocket launcher, now that was pretty cool though, right? I mean, it's like Daryl gets a pass. What is funny is whenever this argument's made, and I've probably heard it at least 500 times, it's always that the saviors were sleeping in the outpost and Glenn went in and stabbed one. It's never like, oh my God, Daryl obliterated those people with the rocket launcher. That was epic. That was always epic. That was not cruel or violent or over the top. So, yeah, I think that might have been a little worse than what Glenn did. But it's all, I guess it's all, whether it's Daryl or it's not Daryl. Hey, we are an hour and 3 minutes in. Wanted to get some Walking Dead chat out there. It's been a little while since we had, wasn't quite rant mode, but I think it was certainly scaling up to a good conversation. If you guys don't know what we do, we're very passionate about the TV show. Actually, we're passionate about everything we talk about. It's a great group. I love seeing your thoughts. I love seeing your comments. This is real-time, live chat, live debate. Much different than a forum. I mean, certainly you can go to a website and you can post something and wait a day for someone else to post, and then you can argue virtually, or you can just kind of jump in here and we will break down topics and conversations and get into the different nuances and the psychology of The Walking Dead. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. Tomorrow night, we're going to do a little bit of Play Dead Live. So we got some tag teams going on, and we're going to be doing our campaign on Friday night. And we are going to be back. I'm going to do at least one Walking Dead stream per week. There's not a lot of news out there, so we're not going to drum this up and do it every night and go for every clickbait article that's out there. It's like, hey, there's another anonymous source. But we are going to get the group together and continue to have chats and conversation around it until we get a release date, until we think Fear's coming back sometime in August. But, certainly everything is open to the current situation. So thanks for everything that you guys do. Gina Crockett's, thank you for the Walking Dead talk. Thank you, Gina. And thank all of you guys, the moderators, the members, the PDL sponsors, the Patreons, and the people just jump in here and are passionate about having good, honest, hard debate. We certainly love to bring that. And at the end of a stream, we're all family. So agree or disagree, we're certainly going to debate it. And that's something unique about our channel that hopefully you don't find anywhere else. Thanks once again for everything that you guys do, and appreciate all of you guys hitting the like button on the way out the door. And I will see you all hopefully tomorrow night for a little bit of Play Dead Live PvP. Thanks again. Peace.